Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Palmy. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to highlight some disability issues and things we find interesting that we frequently encounter when we're out and about. Also, some history on disability that we find interesting. This year, we're going to include more of the interviews of the people that the disability affects. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Palmy. Well, first of all, I wanted to welcome spring. Today's the first day of spring. We just got over a terrible snowstorm here. Missouri in the weather. Just wait 2 minutes and you'll get different weather.
Yeah, it's early in the spring, so I don't guarantee all the winter's gone yet.
Well, the flowers are popping, and our daffodils and our lilacs, so it's perfect allergy season for you.
Yeah, perfect allergy season, and still not sure it's springtime.
Our little dog is allergic to grass, so he is scratching in the background. You can hear him jingling with his bells.
So we're going to talk today a little bit about spinal cord injuries. And once again, let me remind you, we're only doing this for awareness, not for a complete guide for diagnosing people.
Just so that you have an idea, if in case you run across somebody that has spinal cord injury, you have a little bit of knowledge so you can talk to them or interact with them and kind of not be without some kind of knowledge. So what we're talking about is long-term permanent damage to the spinal cord resulting in lasting neurological changes.
Right. But let me remind you, we are not doctors. We're just reading stuff.
And sometimes having trouble reading stuff. This is often the most common causes are trauma, accidents, falls, medical conditions, degenerative diseases. The reason why chronic, and all doctors like shortening things. And so the shortened abbreviation is SCI, and we'll be referring it to as SCI in the future of this podcast. Is why it's distinctive is its persistent symptoms, lifelong management, and has evolving needs. So the type of injuries are complete versus incomplete. That's how injuries are classified.
Actually, I've gotten to know somebody where one side is paralyzed or partially paralyzed, and the other is not, basically.
And that's a spinal injury?
Yeah, people tend to think it's more like, here and it's like legs or arms or totally paralyzed or whatever the case may be. But they don't think like when your dad had a stroke,
that was neurological.
His left side. Is that correct?
Right, but that was neurological. It wasn't a spinal injury.
I understand that, but sometimes spinal injury goes left side or right side.
Depending on where it's injured.
Depending on how it's injured, yes.
Oh, okay. And that would be what we're going to fall into next is the level of injury. Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and that is what each typically affects. So that'd be where that would involve, like you just said, where the injury is and what it affects.
Yeah, basically those are the three areas of your spine, which is that bony column right down the middle of your back that protects the spine cord that's on the inside.
Right. The functional impediments are mobility, sensation, and automatic functions, things that would happen automatically. Long-term symptoms and complications are chronic pain, spastism, muscle weakness, and paralysis, being paralyzed. Secondary complications are pressure injuries, bowel and bladder dysfunction, respiratory issues, bone health concerns, also emotional and cognitive impactments, depression, anxiety, identity shifts, and social barriers.
Yeah, do you remember the other day we were talking about how the anxiety and depression could probably differ from a condition where somebody was born with it versus somebody who had something like this thrust on them?
Yeah, you went through that with you changed your entire life, the scope of your life.
Well, still, I mean, I imagine it's because mine has been a gradual degeneration, if you will. You just bam, wake up and
we talked about that with
whatever. You're in a hospital, found out you're in a car wreck, and your spinal cord was injured, and
right.
It's going to be that way the rest of your life.
Well, kind of was like that with you. You were told you only had a few years to live.
But still a little bit different because you have...
You went through a major depression.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to belittle that point. I'm just saying it's got to be different.
I don't think it is. I think depression is depression.
Well, yeah, but it's one thing to have time to, wrap your head around it versus all of a sudden it's there.
Hopelessness is hopelessness, no matter whether you think it's going to last a long lifetime or whether you think it's going to be a short-term issue.
True. It's so true.
Yeah. So on your daily life and adaptation, a lot of times it affects the mobility and independence. Most times your wheelchair you need to go to a wheelchair or assistant devices. Your home needs to be modified. Your work, your relationship, your community, navigating accessibilities, employment, social participation, ability is being able to figure out what you're able to do at this point, social barriers, how to structure abilityism, shapes, experiences, post-injury. Now we're talking treatment and long-term management. So medical care, of course. A lot of times they're transferred to rehabilitation hospitals. I imagine there's lots and lots of physical therapy, including occupational, assistive technologies. We were talking about what was the one place where they were installing things in the brain?
Neuralink. Well, I just watched the every quarter Neuralink does an update video on YouTube. Now, I'm not going to go through in great detail everything they've accomplished, just a quick summary. Otherwise, it kind of get, just saying what the update was is kind of
could be its own
podcast. Issue or its own podcast episode. It could be its own. We're not going to get into a long story is what I'm saying. Just have to bear this one out. Neuralink, when it was first established, they had 3 patients. They had patient 0, patient 1, and patient 2. And for privacy and HIPAA considerations, they didn't release the names of the patients. Patient 0 was Elon Musk. is proving the proof of concept. He had a chip planted in his brain. It doesn't do anything. He's just proving the proof of concept because the entire operation is automated and done by robots that he built. So it was more like like I said, a proof of concept that he can make it happen and everything will be okay. Patient 1 and patient 2 were both disabled. One was spinal cord injury. I believe the other was Alzheimer's. Does that sound about right?
I think that's right.
And basically, they got to the point where I had gone through a year of being called patient 0 and patient 1, and they have to, be anonymous, and I meant to put strain on their family life. So they were like, okay, I'm where I want to be. I'm able to get out and about now, where these people were like virtually housebound before they started. The first step in the process is they have to be able to learn how to use the brain computer interface. What that means is they have to sit with a computer hooked up to the Bluetooth connection they have on that chip, and be able to move a cursor around and make it do what they want it to do versus, I guess what it's going to do on its own or just sit there. I don't know. They had a problem after year 1. They went and added 10 more people to their list of patients. And they found out, with patients 1 and 2, both had a reduction in the connections they use. A fiber, artificial fiber that connects the chip to a certain spot in the brain for whatever they're trying to get it to do. But it's, redundant. It's not like they do just one fiber, one connection, and move on. They do several connections. And what they did last year is they doubled the amount of connections they do because they didn't know what was causing the brain to detach from where the fibers were connected on the brain's part. As it turns out, the 2026 update addresses that. Your brain basically is supported by your brain stem and then surrounded by cerebral fluid. And every night, your cerebral fluid is flushed away out of your skull. And so what they were, detaching from was what they considered to be normal movement of the brain inside your skull. Whereas your chip is attached to the skull. I believe they changed that for 2026. They actually let it rest on your brain, hoping that's going to, long-term reduce the amount of fiber movement detachments they have. And like I said, they also doubled the amounts of fibers. I mean, we're talking like an insane. They went from 60, I believe it was 60,000 to 120,000. So, I mean, it's not like they hooked up 2 fibers and called it quits. One, if one became attached, there's probably like 5 or 6 more. They've got the word there to do the same thing.
So that's assistive technology. So there's a lot of There's quite a few of those that are out there. Not just Tesla's ideas, but a lot of them are out there trying to figure out the same thing.
When they first started, the company only worked out of California, but now they have a center in, let's see, they tried to do so it's more beneficial worldwide than, you got to buy a ticket and fly to the U.S. to
I thought you said last time it was in Britain. There was one in Britain.
Yeah, I think there's one in London, one in Dubai, I believe there's one in China somewhere. Maybe somewhere like a large city like Shanghai or Hong Kong. So basically what they're trying to do is cover all the continents. So everybody, there's one in Sydney, I recall as well. Again, the benefits are right now, if you're, they also expanded the patient types they accept. They don't just accept spinal cord injuries and Alzheimer's. They also do blindness. They have what they call Operation Blindside, where they work on blindness as cochlear implants work for deafness. The engineers actually build a cybernetic eye, and their surgeons tell them how to hook it up. And
okay, we're getting off the subject.
That surgery will all be done by not neurosurgeons. There's no human factor involved in this. It's too precise for humans to do because these fibers they're using to connect your brain and your nerve endings are just so hard to work with on the human scale. They want everything to be robotic.
So getting back to SCI, there's mobility tech, there's adaptive equipment, and there's emerging neuromodular research, all for the SCI. Yeah, and then there's also pain and symptom management and multidiscipline approaches.
Encourage everyone to visit their website, Neuralink.com, and find out what they have, what they're doing in 2026. I'm sure they have a certain amount of patients they do. Being it's a trial, I don't think there's major cost to you, but I am pretty sure that insurance doesn't cover usually a trial, so I don't know what they have in the works for it. But if you meet their criteria, I'm sure they'll go over it with you.
There is research in emerging science for neuroregenerative and neuromodular and biomaterial and clinical trials, and community-centered research on how CSI, both scholar and lived experiences perspective. So this leads into personal stories and lived experiences. And we have a interview of someone that has CSI in the future. SCI, I'm sorry, in the future. Is that correct, Heb?
Actually, it's two people.
Oh, okay.
One is going to talk about a specific SCI injury and how it affected him, and the other one has been active in the SCI community and knows a lot more about different types of SCI and how they vary from each other and how they vary from different types of patients. So The next 2 episodes, we're going to interview with those 2 people.
Sounds so good. We'll get a different perspective on both.
Yeah. I also wanted to say that I saw or read or saw some stuff online about a lab that grows artificial spinal cords and spinal columns. I've been told that that's been news for like years, and it's kind of like run its course. So I'm guessing the actual good news as far as what SCI can use in the near future is BCI, like the Neuralink I was just explaining, or there are also other companies that develop their own BCI and how it works. So they're not progressing as rapidly as Neuralink is, but I'm sure, like I said, Neuralink is kind of like, they like to keep everything very private for the sake of their patients. So yes, they give you technological updates, but they don't really talk too much to their patients. They let them, the 10 they let in last year did interviews before they had the Neuralink, in theory, so they can talk about after they have the Neuralink and how it's affected their lives. But we haven't got to that part in the update yet, just that they've done several of the operations and they've been successful, and they're on schedule as far as like getting their brain computer interface to work, not as far as their therapy or goals are concerned.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that's about it for this week.
Any housekeeping?
Little bit. I'd like to see a little bit more feedback on our social platforms. If you would post your ideas, we have an account for Instagram, we have an account for X, we have an account or a page set up on Facebook. I want to apologize. I'm not the greatest at social media, so I have to figure out sometimes how these things work. What I was doing was like inviting people, obviously, either I know or people who had profile pictures that suggested they were involved in, for example, whatever community, whatever disabled community, whatever slot they would fit in that community. So get lots of different nationalities, perspectives, not just one, view on disability, just so we'd have varying views. Disability means different things to different people. But in order for us to understand it, oftentimes it takes you to tell us that. That's why I want to hear from you. If you go through our stuff and there's something that we haven't talked about, let us know what it is. And probably we're going to follow the same format for this year, as far as like, we'll talk about stuff our research covers, and then we'll do an interview with someone who's actually affected by that disability. That way we get a more
Rounded.
life lessons learned perspective versus a I read it on the internet. Perspective.
Sounds good.
Did you want to talk about your sourdough for a second?
No, I'm good.
One thing I want to point out, and this is a new one on me, but one of Pommy's customers is a gluten intolerant person, or prospective customers, I guess. But the deal has been, because we've tried so many absolutely terrible gluten-free breads, that we're not gonna charge you for this. We're gonna get you this loaf and see if it meets your standards. And she actually made a loaf of sourdough that tasted like a loaf of sourdough bread that was gluten-free. I thought that was pretty significant.
Yeah. It's not
sure
anything like regular sourdough. I had to start a gluten-free starter, and it was nothing like normal sourdough starter. It was completely different. I ended up taking a course in order to be able to do it, because it doesn't create gluten, so it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, isn't sourdough part of the...
Still has bacteria in it, but it doesn't come off from the...
You still starch it out.
No, nothing like that. I mean, normal sourdough you do, but the gluten you don't have to, because there is no gluten in it.
No,
the reason you do sourdough is
normal sourdough.
Yeah, you do stretch and folds to create the gluten in the flour, so it has structure. But gluten sourdough, you add gums and other things in it to produce a structure so that it has the texture of flour. So it's more chemistry versus structure, actual stuff, actual working it in, because there's no gluten. Gluten is what makes it chewy and tender and tastes good. Tastes like bread.
It makes it taste so good.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough about bread. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks about SCI again. Remember, we have 2 interviews that'll be up. And we don't put time limits on interviews, so they're both on the long side. They're going in separate episodes. So we might have 2 episodes back to back that are interviews. Just warning everybody. But we'll try to make that clear. Well, I think we'll call, if we do that, we're going to call them SCI parts 2 and 3.
Okay.
Or something like that. Whatever this title comes out to be, it'll be the same title. Part 2 for the one interview, and part 3 for the other interview. If they're both on the same episode, we'll say parts 2 and 3.
Sounds good.
Makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, make sure you let us know that too. Until next time, though, goodbye.
Okay. What? You forgot your tagline.
Oh, what do you do when life gives you lemons?
Make lemonade.
We would like to dedicate this podcast to Kevin's mother, Ruth Henry, who has passed away. She was on our podcast in an earlier episode where she explained to us about her cancer. She fought very hard and has lost the battle. But she was a wonderful mother, a wonderful mother-in-law, a wonderful grandmother and friend, wife, and she will be greatly missed. Ruth, wait until we can spend time together in the great beyond. Love you.